Up until the release of my previous video where I'd reported that Warner Brothers had accepted a bid from Netflix for ownership of the company, I hadn't really known what it felt like to be the bearer of bad news, but some people seemed unhappy that I had said that if Paramount backed down and didn't quickly try to launch a hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers, a Netflix ownership scenario could end up benefiting James Gunn much more than it would benefit Zack Snyder. And while all I can ever do is report on entertainment news as honestly as possible, and the analysis I gave in my previous video was actually correct, perhaps Snyder fans will be happy to learn that today there have been some additional major developments that could be in Snyder's favor, as Paramount has indeed launched a hostile takeover bid in hopes of derailing the Netflix deal, as I had suspected they would. Now in this video, I'm going to be discussing how a Paramount takeover could potentially help Zack Snyder, and what I think Paramount's odds of success are. But before we begin, if you've been watching my videos for a while and haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing that now, as it would really help an independent entertainment news reporter like myself.
Do it.
The main goal of Paramount's $108 billion hostile takeover bid from today, at $30 a share, is to bypass Warner Brothers CEO David Zaslav and appeal to Warner Brothers shareholders and investors with a more generous offer than what Netflix's final bid was, and Paramount's strongest argument here is that Zaslav made a deal that was only good for his own pocket and personal prestige, not the deal that was most lucrative for anybody else that had any skin in this game. As a result, Warner Brothers today said that they would be reviewing Paramount's offer and making a decision within the next 10 days. So that means that by December 19th, we'll all know more as to where this deal is heading. When it comes to the very wealthy Ellison family who own Paramount and are the ones behind this deal, they seemingly have a good relationship with US President Donald Trump, who just yesterday finally weighed in on this deal, saying that while he respected Netflix's CEO Ted Sarandos, he did have some concerns about the deal itself due to the huge market share Netflix already has.
They have a very big market share. And when they have Warner Brothers, that share goes up a lot. So I don't know, that's going to be for some economists to tell. And I'll be involved in that decision too.
And if you also take into consideration that both Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and the Saudis, who have separately committed to investing money in the US, are a few of the financial backers of the Paramount offer, Trump may not be especially keen on Netflix taking over Warner Brothers, which is something that by his own admission, he himself would have to weigh in on. On the other hand, Paramount CBS aired a review with Marjorie Taylor Greene last night where Trump was presented negatively, and just today Trump specifically criticized Paramount's ownership in a Truth Social post. So maybe this shows that his relationship with the Ellisons isn't as strong as some people might have believed. In addition, because of how close Trump seems to be with Paramount's potential backers, it could also be bad optics for him to aggressively intervene in the deal, at least publicly, so we'll have to see how all of this plays out. As for James Gunn, he's wasted no time in trying to capitalize on the now contested Warner Brothers Netflix deal. For starters, Gunn rushed to his favorite place online, Threads, again, where he communicated with a quote-unquote concerned DC fan who wanted to know if everything was going to be alright, to which Gunn responded that everything was going to be even better than alright, showing a newfound confidence that we hadn't seen from him in a while. Gunn even started posting photos of his productions, maybe in something of a response to Snyder's Instagram post, signaling to Snyder that he's still in the game. And then Gunn also did an interview with Bloomberg, which casually mentioned that he and current DC Studios co-CEO Peter Safran have received contract extensions to stay at Warner Brothers until spring 2027, and while that would seemingly sound like a win for Gunn, it's such a short-term extension that maybe it was just intended to let Gunn finish Superman Man of Tomorrow and then leave his fate to be decided at a later point. It's also possible that since Netflix isn't supposed to take control of Warner Brothers for another 18 months, should their deal go through, Gunn's very short extension was mainly part of a bigger default strategy to keep all the key executives in place until Warner Brothers officially changes hands. It's also quite telling that Netflix's CEO Ted Sarandos recently spoke about the potential of the DC brand while only specifically mentioning Matt Reeves' Penguin series as something that he was impressed with, and not one word about James Gunn's Superman, Peacemaker, or Creature Commandos, projects that we all know have underperformed. And I know what some of you are thinking. Well, if Netflix aren't necessarily huge fans of James Gunn's DC output, doesn't that mean that they would prefer Zack Snyder to take charge of DC again with the Snyderverse? And the answer to that is, we don't really know yet. Netflix certainly have a rapport with Snyder after already working with him in the past, but if you think about all the messaging they keep shoving into all their movies and shows in recent years, they could suddenly end up embracing Gunn just because they like his politics. Regardless, anything involving Netflix and Snyder is not only uncertain, even if they were interested in a DCEU revival, it would likely take a few years before Netflix would even be able to consider projects involving Snyder, and by then, Netflix could even end up just rebooting the franchise. Again! On the other hand, I believe that Paramount was and still is probably the better choice for Snyder, as he already has a good relationship with the Saudi investors in that deal, who are currently working with Snyder on a UFC movie project. We've also heard enough rumors over the past few months that the Ellisons and Paramount don't seem to be fans of Gunn's work and would prefer seeing Snyder revisit the DCEU instead. I mean, even that's not guaranteed, but with Paramount, I genuinely believe that Snyder has a chance to do something sooner rather than later, which would be crucial, especially since none of those Snyderverse actors are getting any younger. And that could be the reason why Zack Snyder has posted so many photos from the DCEU on Instagram in recent months to rally his fan base, especially during a time Paramount were seen as the frontrunner to purchase Warner Brothers, and he really wanted this DCEU revival to get pushed along quickly. And make no mistake about it, while even Paramount may not necessarily fire Gunn on day one after they would potentially take control, it's not likely that they would renew Gunn's contract beyond its expiration in 2026, or even give him a brief extension. With Paramount, not only would James Gunn's entire future at DC be in immediate jeopardy, even his Superman Man of Tomorrow movie would be in risk of cancellation. That's why Gunn was so frantic to talk to shills online recently, where he even let it slip that he didn't know how long he would be around for. That's why in my previous video I was explaining that with Netflix in the picture, James Gunn was at least able to breathe a temporary sigh of relief. Because to me it seems like James Gunn's main goal at this point is to just keep buying more time and staying in the picture. And with the potential Netflix deal being caught up in courts for a few years, Gunn may end up sticking around even beyond 2027 just by default, even if his projects underperform. But again, we don't know how that'll turn out. It is very much up in the air. Sometimes hostile takeovers like Paramount's are successful, and sometimes they aren't. I'm about 50-50 on this one at the moment, but it's certainly going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And obviously, I don't think that Snyder is down for the count just yet, and he's still in the picture with all of these latest developments, so we'll have to see what happens with him as well. In any case, as a personal request, please don't get upset at me when I report on news as it unfolds, but I do promise that I'm always going to report the truth as I understand it. Sometimes you'll like what I have to say, and sometimes you won't, but hopefully you can respect that I do have integrity when it comes to my reporting, and I can't lose sight of that, no matter what. In any case, if you enjoyed this video, and you want to continue to get reports as they unfold, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it would really help my channel. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day.
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.